What's up?
Hey.
We are in Revelation U Reiki and Wellbeing, the Spiritual Wellness Center right now. So the acoustics might sound a little funky, and if they do, that's why.
Yeah, it's a big room. When was this built? 1800s, early 1900s?
Yeah.
So.
It's a lovely space. And we have Butters here with us. He's trying to figure out where he wants to lay down. He was in a sunspot. He may have gotten too warm, so.
Yeah, we just picked him up from daycare, so he's getting tired. Tired dog is a good dog.
That's right. That's right. And you know, our topic today is escaping suffering. And Butters escaped boredom. I wouldn't say suffering, maybe, this morning by going to daycare. So
yeah,
he is now chilling.
Him being tired and worn out helps us escape some suffering.
Yeah, that is true. That's true. So yeah, today we're going to talk about escaping suffering, or how to escape suffering. I know there's a lot of suffering going on right now, real and perceived, in lots of different areas, right? So we'll just talk about personally. I think we'll start from the individual side of escaping suffering, which is actually kind of like a Buddhist concept, elimination of suffering.
Yeah, I don't like the word escape. Like, to me, I mean, it makes me think you're like running.
Okay.
Running from something, which I don't, it's better to like take something face on. I mean, I guess sometimes you do have to run.
Yeah.
So.
Do you like the word eliminate?
Yeah,
suffering?
eliminate sounds better to me.
Yeah.
But just the word escape, it just makes me think negative.
Yeah.
I don't, I think it's like a negative word. But
probably from your background too. Yeah. Escape could feel very present from like your background. Like a lot of people who are in recovery were using to escape something. Would you agree with that, or?
No, hold on. Say that again. What?
Yeah.
People in recovery, what?
May have been using.
Oh, yeah. As an escape.
As an escape from something.
Yeah, I just think escape is like you're running and you're not really dealing with it.
Yeah.
Which sometimes that's the only option that you have until you can really figure it out or face it head on. But yeah, I think eliminating might be better verbiage.
Yeah. All right. So when you think of that concept, eliminating suffering, what comes up for you?
I mean, there was a time when I was using where like that was a feeling that I wanted to have. I wanted to feel pain and I wanted to wallow in it, and like I fed off of it. Like maybe it's like self-pity, but I guess something that comes to mind is a lot of times you can't do it on your own. I feel like suffering, whether it be through depression, through addiction, and a bad relationship. I mean, a lot of that stuff, it's hard to do on your own self-will. Like you do need help.
Absolutely, yeah.
And with help, you can change your outlook, change your practices, change how you feel about something. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think also with help, to eliminate suffering, with help, you can start to see things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And you can gain the confidence to move forward in a different way. I think you said some really interesting things there where you said you almost fed off it when you were younger or in certain situations. That really resonated with me. I mean, I think anyone that's dealt with anxiety or depression or anything like that, it can feel very familiar. And anytime something feels familiar, it feels comforting almost.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it's something that's not super positive or great.
Well, and it's a feeling. Sometimes it's easier to feel those feelings than it is to feel happy. So if you're feeling something, it can, like you said, it can be comforting.
Yeah.
It can also be a badge. Like, oh, look at everything I'm going through, or like, playing the martyr, playing the victim. It can be a way to like try to make yourself feel unique. Like, look at all the stuff I've went through. Like, you haven't had to deal with the stuff I have. And, it's so I think you can kind of hold on to that because it can give you an out. It can give you an excuse. It can make you feel unique. So you don't want to let go of that as well.
Yeah. So, thinking about this, where we're at now in this conversation is not wanting to eliminate suffering.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of I guess, where we've naturally started.
Well, yeah. I mean, because it can be hard to let it go sometimes.
Yeah. For those feelings of familiarity, for those feelings of, interestingly, many people hold on to that suffering feeling because there's a lack of self-worth. Right? And then, so you mentioned something interesting, like there's that lack of self-worth, but in some cases you might be trying to overcome that lack of self-worth through, hey, look at how, trying to get something from that suffering.
Yeah. Well, it's like an inferiority complex, I guess. I don't know if that's...
That self-worth piece is really tricky too, because if you feel like you deserve suffering.
Yeah, that could be it too. You feel like you don't deserve any better.
Right. That's a whole big topic too of why people can feel that way.
Well, and then other times people might hold on to it because it's like grief, and they don't want to go through the grieving process, and they don't know how.
Yeah, like the grieving of letting that feeling go.
Yeah, or that person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to say who, but there's someone close in my life that has had a lot of losses over the past year or two. And those add up, and then not that person in general, but some people can hold on to all those losses because they're not ready to go through the grieving process, or the same thing. It kind of gives them a reason to like feel bad, or sometimes it's kind of how they
justify behavior.
Yeah, or even like that's the only way that they know how to honor that person is through like feeling sad or down.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So
it could almost be like they feel guilty for if they didn't have those feelings.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be it too.
Anytime you're trying to eliminate suffering, that equals hard inner work.
Yeah, I mean, and it's almost like the 12 steps. I mean, first you gotta admit that it's not healthy for you. Well, first you probably have to like realize that you don't want to live in that energy anymore.
Yeah.
It's like we just talked about, sometimes people thrive in that energy. They want to be.
Yeah.
So you reach a point where you're like, this is just not a good way to live.
Yeah. It's not working for me anymore.
So, and then you got to reach out for help and inner work. Like, depending on what you're suffering from, there can be all kinds of, solutions or avenues for help.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple that come to mind for me is, just within the work that I do, certainly therapy, depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
Therapy, coaching can certainly help with changing patterns, changing like mindset shifts, moving forward. There are, support groups that are very helpful, which I'm sure you'll touch on here in a minute. There are, books to read. If some people like to dive in and get help from other people immediately, and for some it takes a minute. They feel more comfortable starting with that self-help, if you will, and then or turning it inward individually before they are ready to move forward and really reach out for help from someone else or an organization or a doctor or, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. They just have to continue coming to terms with those next steps.
Yeah. It can be really hard to change inwardly on your own. I mean, not saying people haven't done it, but mm-hmm. Left to my own devices, I always screw things up. So I've never been able to get out of things on my own. So, mm-hmm. But a lot of us, it's the hardest thing to do is ask for help or to reach out or tell another person that, you're struggling or you're suffering or that you have problems. That's the hardest thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why people will always try to fix it on their own first.
Yeah.
But not always, but, sometimes that opens the door, though, for them to be more open to other things.
Yeah. So. I guess I speak from experience. That's generally how I've tracked, is because of my extreme self-sufficiency. Mm-hmm. I prefer to kind of start with, doing a lot of reading, mm-hmm. researching, introspection. I love introspection, mm-hmm. positive introspection and negative introspection. Talking about beating yourself up and, self-worth and deserving. I've gone down all those rabbit holes before as well. And then I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to open up. I'm mm-hmm. ready to step into something different. I'm ready to learn more through other people. I'm ready to either work with someone individually or gain community through conversation or, step into another type of healing and forward movement.
Yeah, I don't think that's uncommon. I had a couple different thoughts pop up. One, in this day and age, I think we are more apt to just go to Google,
Yeah.
And then that kind of,
yeah.
And there's all this information out there and we think, so I think that might prevent us, that might delay us from trying to get involved with mm-hmm. a group or other people. And
that's a good point.
Because it is what's Google say? And then self-knowledge in terms of when I got sober and alcohol and drug addiction, self-knowledge is not enough to create that change in terms of addiction. I mean, you can know if I go have a drink, I'm probably going to end up arrested or I'm going to overdo it. That's, that and you do it anyways. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with having all the knowledge of recovery. You could be knowledgeable of the 12 steps, the big book, know the solution, and you still decide to drink again or whatever. So it's more about and it's good to know that stuff. It is, but it's not always in mm-hmm. terms of recovery. It's not always going to be a strong enough solution. Mm. And there's even doing this podcast as an example, because there's nothing more helpful to your spirit than helping someone else. And there's no answer to why that is effective or why that just, maybe it's because it's an action, and it mm-hmm. doesn't have to be I'm sitting down with another person and working through all this. It's just the act of one person helping another and talking mm-hmm. does something that just makes you feel better. Mm-hmm. It's, I don't know if you say it's a spiritual axiom or if it's just it's really unexplainable.
Yeah.
And, sitting down doing this podcast, it's talking about stuff. It does, I feel better after I do it. Or it's the same thing with when I was in AA and being a sponsor and sitting down and doing step work, just the act of doing it kind of feeds your soul. Mm-hmm. So
mm-hmm. And so, I totally agree, and it's really interesting. The thing that comes to mind there is, why is it that works? Why is it that's mm-hmm. a thing? And I think two things. One, it's connection, and we're designed for connection, mm-hmm. right? And we're also designed to help each other. We really are. I mean, when push comes to shove, people can talk shit on social media all day long about this group, that group, whatever's going on. driving down Coleman's Crossing, whatever it might be. But when it comes down to it, when it's time, when something's going on and somebody needs help, we're going to help them. I would say 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, you would hope.
Because we see that.
But there's a lot of people that I think are there's still a lot of good in the world, and I think it's the basics. It's opening the door for someone, like seeing if someone needs help. It's little practices like that. But yeah, I feel like it seems like we've become a little bit more selfish in our society, or more like, the politics, I think, has become a big divider, and stuff like that. I think is kind of like is slowly dividing our society or whatever. But yeah, I would hope that most people, but it seems like even like being out in public, people don't pay attention to what's going on around them, so they might not even notice that someone is like struggling to do something or needs some help, or and that's just like, I'm talking like physical stuff, but the emotional everyday, like you might work with someone every day and you might not even pick up that they're struggling, or we're really good at hiding that stuff.
We're really good at hiding it, and to your point, the society that we've created over the last couple decades has been such an individualistic society that the silos have pushed us into more of that individual mindset.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that I really do believe that the pendulum is starting to swing back slowly. But I think that we're definitely going to see that pendulum swing back to where we say, okay, connection really is important. Community really is important. And that means that I need to engage with the world around me and technology in a different way.
Yeah.
Right? So everybody has these phones. They're in our pocket. They have all this information. It has all the stuff that we like on it. Right? And we see it all the time. There'll be 3 people sitting in a room. We did it last night. 3 people sitting in a room. Everybody's on their own. The TV's on. We're watching the game. But everybody's on their device. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even though we're within, we have community around us, we have people around us, the connection is different, right? So growing up, you and I remember this because we're old enough that we didn't have phones when we were younger, right? But growing up, everybody had to watch the same thing and be in the same room.
Yeah, we didn't have 2, 3, 4 TVs.
Right.
TVs in our hand.
Right, and we're having conversations about what we're watching, or we had conversations about what we did watch, or we had conversations about, and we still do this, where what'd you do today, how was your day, what'd you do at school today, how is this, blah, blah, blah. We have gotten away from that, and I think that's increased some of our suffering from a connection perspective.
Yeah, that could be very, what about if you're already if you're already struggling emotionally, or I guess suffering, but how much does social media kind of like make it worse? You see stuff, and I know there was a time years ago, maybe I low self-esteem, I'm single, and I might be posting like selfies, trying to get a little bit of attention. No one's liking my pictures, and then I see like some other person who is getting all these likes, and then you really start to, it brings you down even more.
Yeah.
Or even when I was on like dating apps, like you're out there and you're not getting any like swipes on you, and then it just really makes you hurt even more. So it's like, those are just a few examples, but you see all this stuff when you're scrolling, and how often does it kind of like, even if it just moves that meter a little bit, like your meter, say your meter of how you feel is already kind of low, and you see something pop up and it drops a little bit. You see something pop up, it drops a little bit. You see, how often does that happen?
Yeah, that is really a great, because that, you get online and these things just come at you.
Yeah.
And depending on what it is, it can elevate you, or, like you said, drop you down a little bit more. So I think that's a really great point.
And we all like drama, so yeah, we like, oh, there's drama, or this bit. Does that really boost us, or does it kind of drop? So.
Well, that's a good point too. It's like, so social media, I think it's really great. There are some great things about social media, and just like there's some great things about regular media, and then there's some really not so great things, right? It's all on how we interact with it. But like, I was talking to my mom the other day, and I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I'm just sitting here drinking coffee, watching Face the Nation." And I said, "Oh, that's a real pick-me-up, right? In the morning, because it's a political show."
Yeah.
So I was kind of teasing her. I'm like, "You should come to meditation." What you're doing now is like the opposite of meditation. It's getting you all riled up first thing in the morning, and then you can feel that way all day.
Yeah.
So, but that's what we do to ourselves, whether it's look at these sites that get us all riled up in the morning, or even watch the news, or it could be anything, really. It doesn't have to be.
Well, I mean, it's even the sports shows. Now, I just want to watch Sports Center and see the highlights and the updates on scores, but they've switched the programming on ESPN to be all these like talk shows and debate shows where, and no, people, they're not really arguing, but one has an opinion, the other has, and it's just them going back and forth on it. And it's like, I don't,
Yeah.
it's all debate and arguing and like
right. So
disagreement and yeah.
So that's what our culture has become. That is what has really fueled the fire over the last several years. And so we're talking about eliminating suffering.
Yeah.
Or turning the dial down a little bit. I think there are several things that we can do that, I mean, obviously doing the deep work about changing patterns, understanding why they were created, why you're attracted to this, why you have low self-worth, why these addictions are popping up, like all of those things are really deep and difficult.
It takes a lot of work. Yeah.
Some individual, just some things that you can do every day. I know there are some things that I incorporate or would like to incorporate more. And I know we say meditation, and that is true, but it doesn't have to be sitting down, doing a meditation for 30 minutes. It can just be a walk in nature, that moving meditation, right? Leaving your phone at home and just kind of tuning out and reconnecting. It all comes down to connection. Reconnecting with yourself, reconnecting with nature, reconnecting with what's larger, engaging in your community, like you were saying earlier, was just those little things like opening the door for someone. Or if someone, again, we've said this before, he can reach the top of the shelf at the grocery store. I cannot. But just noticing, being present and aware wherever you are so you can notice if someone needs help. If someone is,
Well, and sometimes, you kind of had a couple different ways to change your outlook or how you feel. I mean, sometimes like doing a hard reset, like you said, meditating, going on a walk, but trying not to really just trying to clear your mind. But then sometimes the best solution to getting out of a funk is doing like the opposite, like you said, like I just want to sit around and lay around and not do anything or interact. And you're like, oh, let's go see, the other day I was kind of feeling that way. It's like, you want to go see your grandma who had fallen, and it was up in the air whether we were going to go together or not. And I was kind of feeling like, I don't want to be present. I don't want to deal with anyone. But the best thing I could have done for myself was going with you and going out and being supportive to someone. Because if I would have stayed home with those emotions, it just would have gotten worse.
Yeah.
So going out, and even though I didn't necessarily want to, by the end of the day, I felt better. I was glad I did. We got to spend some time together. So yeah, sometimes doing the opposite of what you really want to do is the best thing to do.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Eliminating suffering, opposite action.
Yeah, and it can be hard.
Yeah.
Other than the big things, which we can bring up, of getting help, sometimes it is we were talking about social media, sometimes it's eliminating those things that you know cause you to feel bad, whether it be interacting with a certain individual, texting a certain individual, maybe it's like an on-off relationship, looking at social media, certain things on social media. So it did all. I mean, is it self-control? Is it not? Like, some people say it's just self-control. You just need self-control, but it's a little bit harder than that.
It is
Self-control, if all you needed was self-control, you wouldn't get to the point that you've created all these things that make you feel bad.
That's a great point.
It wouldn't get to that point. So yeah, there's little things like that you can do that might kind of slide that meter up. But then there's bigger things where you might need to get on medicine.
Yep.
You might need therapy. Like you said, you might need coaching. You might need to go incorporate something like yoga or Reiki, or go to the gym, get in AA, get in self-help groups. Like, those are the big things that, like, I was going to say another big one could be like a bad relationship. I really, people can be stuck in those forever. So I don't know a whole lot of how to get out of one of those, but that's something else that can.
Yeah, that's very tricky.
Like a very mentally, emotionally abusive partner, but you can't get out of it. So it's like, what do you do? I mean.
Right, and you hear so many people say, and I think, especially with regard to that, or other kind of similar things, it's like, well, just stop doing that, or just like leave. Like, so easy.
Yeah,
it's not that easy.
I might have been one years ago, like I don't know why she stays with him, or I don't know why she keeps going back to him, but now I think I have a little bit more empathy and sympathy, because it's like, I think it's a lot more difficult than what you think. It's not just a matter of, there's programming there. There's all kinds of stuff. That could be a different, that's a hard one. If that's what's causing the suffering, it's like, I guess if the person's an alcoholic, there's Al-Anon groups you can go to. But what about if the person's not an alcoholic and they're just downright mean and hateful? What do you do for that?
I mean, you could probably still go to Al-Anon.
Yeah, you could just say they're an alcoholic, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I went to just a sidebar. I went to an Al-Anon meeting with a friend several years ago, and I'm like, can I come every week? This was really great. I mean, it really was so so connective. It was so real. It was so honest and open, and enlightening, about behaviors and how we enable. I don't know. I think it was just really a really positive experience. So I really encourage anyone who's in that situation where they're dealing with a loved one or friend or whatever it might be, who's an alcoholic, to check one of those out.
And it was started by one of the wives of one of the founders of AA, but they just took this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Lois. I think Lois started it, but she just took those spiritual principles and applied it to, because the person that was also suffering due to the other person's alcoholism,
right?
Because it is a family sickness. It's not. That person is an alcoholic, but the sickness, it's there with everybody.
It's an infection.
Yeah, it is pretty much. It's just the way it is. Like it affects everybody. So.
So we didn't really go too deep, but I definitely work with people and have used the spiritual principles that I teach to eliminate suffering.
Yeah, you've helped a lot of people.
The biggest thing is self-awareness and really being honest with yourself. What is it that you're not getting that you need, right? What are you doing in your life that's supporting feeling good or not feeling good? What are the patterns? What are your belief systems that you had since you were a younger person, and then you've carried them into today? Do they still resonate? Do they not? Looking at all these different things, self-awareness is such a key component to eliminating suffering, because we've generally a lot of times, this is what happens, is that we're just doing what we think we're supposed to do instead of really listening to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I think you gotta make the decision to let it go too.
Yeah.
Like what we were kind of initially first started the podcast with. I mean, some people don't want to let go of it.
Right.
Because it still provides something for them.
Yeah.
So.
And that can be security within their family unit.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't something that was easy. And I'm not suggesting that people do this, but this is just something that was present for me. Saying, I don't believe in the same thing that you believe in to my family, and, you know, risking alienation or judgment from them.
Mm.
I didn't receive that.
Yeah.
And that's just a specific thing that's present for me. Anytime that you're trying to eliminate suffering, you know, you don't want to bring more on by saying, I'm not this group that I'm associated with. Hey, I'm going to do something different, or my thought process has changed, or my core value system has changed. Whether that's, you know, it could be anything related to literally any area of life. You know, anytime you're in that situation where you're risking alienation.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about that, but
you know, it all comes down to really connection with yourself, understanding who you are and how you work, and living in alignment with that. I mean, that's really what's going to get you to the other side of suffering.
Well, and asking for help is a big one too.
Yeah.
If you realize you can't do it on your own.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of tools out there where other people have succeeded and can help. So.
Yeah, right. Work smarter, not harder, right? Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully people get something out of that.
Yeah.
So.
Please let us know, you know, what would you like more information on in regard to eliminating suffering? Do you want to go deeper into this conversation? Because we can. Well, we can go deeper.
Well, yeah, and if you listen to the podcast and don't follow your social media, that's a good place to interact and say, hey, would you guys talk about this? Or you didn't mention this in the podcast.
Yeah.
Should have brought that up. Yes. So what's your Facebook is Revelation U.
Yep.
The letter U. So.
Yep. And Instagram is b.revealed.
Yeah. So if you are, I mean, there might be some people that listen, because I've plugged it out there and, you know, Reddit and all that. But if they don't follow the social media, but that's a good place to interact. And I mean, eventually it'd be nice to have some like other people on this.
Yeah. I know, we keep saying that.
Give me a break. No, our schedules get so crazy. I mean, this is going to be released kind of late.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, follow the socials, Revelation U, the letter U on Facebook, b.revealed.
On Instagram.
Yep.
I'm not a TikToker or an X person.
No.
So.
We're old.
We're old. All right. Well, I guess that's it.
Yep.
All right.
Until next time.